Hey, you listen to Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM 89.0. As always, I'm Grady Hooker, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
We got a packed show, so we're going to be just jumping straight into the pay-per-view previews. We're going to start with NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, Johnny Gargano versus Cien Almas. Cien now has a manager, trying to do something. He did seem to be a little bit dead on arrival, treading water. But Gargano's back, I guess, is the big point of this one.
Yeah, still such a shame we didn't get the feud we were supposed to get. Injuries suck.
Yeah, it seemed as though, last TakeOver it was the massive build. It was a huge event, it shocked everyone. It was after the copyright logo, people were going insane. DIY breaking up, it was perfect. Oh no, he got injured. Rip, let's just let Gargano float around for a little while, because there's nothing else for him to do.
Yep, unfortunately that's what it's turned into being.
I do have to assume he'll pick up the win here, despite Cien having something new with his character. I think they still want to keep Gargano strong for when that feud eventually does happen with Ciampa.
Yeah. Which will probably be takeover wherever WrestleMania is.
Yeah. It'll be a while away. The other singles match without a championship on the line, we got Alistair Black taking on Hideo Itami. Both very kicky individuals. Itami coming back off injury, having a bit of an alignment switch. Alistair Black, I don't know if he's still undefeated, but been a fairly dominant force in NXT.
I don't expect that to change. I figure they're probably building Black to something. Whatever it is, I don't know.
He's definitely interesting. He's one that I've loved to sit down and watch, just to more out of like a curiosity of anything. And Hideo is also, you do wonder if he's got that curse now. Just as we said with the last match, injuries suck, and they happen to Hideo frequently, which has kind of derailed anything that they were trying to build for the man. We got the Tag Team Championships, Authors of Pain going up against Sanity. According to Wikipedia, it's going to be Wolf and Dane in there. Depends. Are we going to see Sanity on the main roster soon, I guess is the question, still floating around. Some people wanting them to be involved in the Breezango segment, but Authors of Pain...
That president accounted for?
Yep. Pretty much. Josh wants them to be involved in the Breezango bit. Authors of Pain still looking pretty dominant, though, so we'll see. I'd have to imagine if they win the titles here, they won't be appearing on the main roster.
Yeah, although... you never know, because you gotta remember, Sasha Banks and Kevin Owens showed up with the NXT championships on the main roster.
True, it's definitely not unheard of. I just figure if they're going to be the team that stops the Authors of Pain after both DIY and the Revival couldn't even working together, they're finally the ones that get that huge payoff. I guess you could send them with that momentum straight up to the main roster, but
yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I'd expect if they win, they're sticking down for a little bit longer. I don't know if they will.
I don't want them to, because I know that the other option is for the Breezango angle, and I don't want it.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean on the Authors of Pain purely for the fact that they are the champions. Are coming into it. They were really strong in their last match, the ladder match. Though ignoring main roster effects entirely, I love Sanity and I wouldn't mind them picking up the tag titles. I think it would be better than them just treading water at the moment, so I'd be fine with it, especially if they got the payoff of beating the Authors of Pain. If it's at the expense of the other team being involved in the Breezango angle, I'm a little less happy about it.
Well, that's the only other option. If it's not Sanity or somebody from NXT, then it has to be Harper and Rowan.
And to ignore that completely, the NXT Women's Championship, we're finally getting our Asuka Ember match. Is Asuka's reign, which I think is at 500 days now, is it finally going to end?
It should.
That doesn't sound like a confident Josh.
Well, I've said that multiple times already, so of course it's not confident.
True.
But yeah, it should end. Ember should be the one that should end it, but you never know. They may have her go to the main roster undefeated and have her just drop the title because there's nobody left to beat her.
Mm.
And then do a tournament where the winner faces the Mae Young Classic winner, and the champ and the winner of that match is crowned the new NXT Women's Champion.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being a potential path to go down. I think no matter what, Ember Moon is the final boss. I know Asuka, obviously is the bigger threat there, but is the final boss, the last one she's got left. She's defeated everybody else in NXT. If she defeats Ember here, and the storyline's over, like there's not going to be a second match where Ember wins, I think this
technically this is the third match. That would be the third match.
True.
Because you got to remember, because they did have a first match, but Asuka kind of cheated to win the match, which is what's led to a second one.
Hmm. So if there's going to be a third one, I guess, it's pretty much, I think, if Asuka wins and moves on, that's it. There's no one left for her. Except maybe the May Classic. But I don't know when that ends. So I don't know how long we'd have to wait for a conclusion with that. NXT Championship, Bobby Roode defending against Drew McIntyre. We've still got Roderick Strong hanging on the in the horizon there as well. Are we going to see the Glorious One drop it to the guy who's coming back?
I hope not.
Is that because you're not a fan of Drew McIntyre, or because you want to see what Bobby can do?
Can I say both?
Fair enough.
It's just I think I don't think Drew McIntyre is the right person to take the title off of Bobby Roode.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think it's Roderick Strong.
Yeah, I was surprised from the events on NXT this week this wasn't going to be a triple threat match for the championship. And I feel like it would have been a lot more acceptable for a title change to happen at a triple threat. And it's not like the rest of the card is filled with multi-men matches. They're all singles or tag team in the case of the tag team championship, so it wouldn't have been too...
SummerSlam!
Yeah, well, shush, we ignore SummerSlam. I've got a long list of stuff to get through for them. But NXT itself, I could see easily a triple threat for that, but Roddy isn't here, so I'm going to assume Bobby's going to bowl through Drew McIntyre, despite my like for the guy. I do like Drew. I definitely see Bobby winning here and moving on, potentially to a triple threat later on. I don't know if Drew will have another claim, or whether they'll just go Rude Roderick one-on-one. Plenty of options, we'll see what they do. Do I want to start the heavy list of SummerSlam? I'm going to have to start it. It's SummerSlam. Mm-hmm. We'll start on the pre-show. Cruiserweight Championship. Akira Tazawa already captured it. Will be defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Neville.
That was a pretty cool moment. I liked Akira winning the title. And a lot of people complained that it was because of the loss of the moment of being at the pay-per-view, but it would have just been on the pre-show. Hardly anybody would have seen it.
Yeah.
But it was on Raw, and 3 million people got to see it.
It definitely gives me high hopes for Akira retaining here. Why give him that moment on Raw and then just have him drop it to Neville again on a pre-show and ruin Neville's big streak going? So I think Akira's going to keep the title. I definitely agree the Raw moment was great and much better than winning it on a pre-show. I'm sure if you went to the guy and said, would you rather win the Cruiserweight title on Raw or on a pre-show, like 10 out of 10 people are going to pick Raw. And we'll see where this leads the Cruiserweight division.
Actually, 9 out of 10, because one person will pick pay-per-view because of pay-per-view bonus.
Good point. Forgot about the money. 9.5 out of 10. That half a person. Our other match on the pre-show, SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The New Day defending against the Usos. Wikipedia saying it's going to be Big E and Xavier.
That's what they said on SmackDown.
There we go.
So yeah, they already announced who's going to be in the for the New Day.
In kayfabe terms, I feel like they lose a little bit of an advantage announcing beforehand which two of them are going to be in the match.
It was Daniel Bryan that announced it.
Did Daniel Bryan make the decision for them?
I don't know. All I know is there was a segment between Daniel Bryan and the Usos where Daniel Bryan announced which two of the New Day was going to be defending the titles.
Okay.
They announced Big E and Xavier Woods, and then this set up a match for the Usos and versus Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, which the Usos ended up winning.
Mm-hmm. Who's going to win at the pay-per-view, though, is the question.
The New Day.
Those championship belts?
I want to see them.
I definitely, again, it would be a little weird momentum-wise to give it to the New Day, let them run for a little bit, and then throw it back to the Usos. I'm going to imagine New Day win here and move on to a different feud, sort of releasing the Usos. But in the SmackDown Tag Division, we did allude to it earlier, we got Breezango and their attackers as well. As a secondary storyline, we did get told that Breezango would return, luckily not in 25 years, but in 2 weeks. So we got a little bit of wait before we find the conclusion for that feud.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be Harper and Rowan, just resign to the fact.
I'm holding out hope as long as I can, because that's the thing I want to do.
Fair enough. We'll go to our song now, and then we'll bust through the rest of SummerSlam after the song. So, is there any particular reason why you chose this SummerSlam's theme?
No, just, it's a SummerSlam.
Why not, right? Just, it's a SummerSlam. We'll play it for now. Back with the Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM 89.0, Grady and Josh, straight into the rest of SummerSlam. It's hectic. We're going to start John Cena, Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin fails his cash-in because of John Cena. Potentially... John Cena has now been involved in 3 failed cash-in attempts.
One of which was his own.
Yeah, still involved. And Baron Corbin potentially having heat. You know, internet rumors seems to think everybody has heat, so, you know, take that with a bowl full of salt. But the match, Cena-Corbin, still got my fingers crossed for Corbin here.
I expect him to win. I think the idea was he was going. From what I heard, if he didn't cash in on Tuesday, he was going to cash in on Sunday on the winner of the WWE Championship and still lose the match. It was going to be something to build on his character.
I think at the moment it definitely gives him that Baron is angry storyline, which gives him a reason to be able to beat John Cena. You know, he's really angry.
And you know, JBL kind of laid it out as why it made sense. When he became, when he went to cash in, he got careless.
Yeah. It
basically was a young lion that got careless, and it got caught.
And now that lion is mad.
Yep. And I expect him to take Cena out for a while. Cena's got to go do movies and things.
Of course.
So I expect him to win the match. If he doesn't win the match, he will hurt Cena, which will benefit him anyway. But he's going to hurt Cena regardless, but that would help him with if he loses the match.
Yeah.
Because it'll get him his heat back.
So Baron Corbin to defeat free agent John Cena, who's not doing too much with his free agent status. Randy Orton-Rusev, another singles match. Orton wins and we all move on?
Yeah. Another thing that we needed to mention was that it's SummerSlam. John Cena doesn't win at SummerSlam.
Good point. Got that.
I guess I'm going to say that this would probably be his payback for the beating he got last year.
Yeah. It's as simple as that. This feud doesn't have too much behind it. Just looking at the two on paper, you go, Orton's going to win and we're all going to move on. The match, this card is pretty full, so I'm not sure how much time everybody's going to get. I'm going to imagine this is going to be one of the ones that we're going to have to rush through fairly quickly. So it'll be what it's going to be. Finn Balor, Bray Wyatt, a little bit of blood involved on Raw. I'm just going to imagine Finn's going to win here. He's going to pull out the demon and be able to overtake the Eater of Worlds.
That's what I would imagine. A lot of people complained about doing the match on Raw. Like, it developed the story. It gave you a reason to care about the feud.
Yeah. And quite often in Finn Balor feuds, it'll be, you can defeat Finn Balor, but can you defeat the Demon King? And he'll pop out and he'll magically, essentially go Super Saiyan, have a whole new level of power, and be able to defeat his opponent, and we'll all go, oh, that's some pretty cool face paint, and all be happy with ourselves. What do we got next? Big Show, Big Cass, Enzo in the Shark Cage. Big Show's got a little bit of a sore hand.
I would expect Big Cass to win the match. I just hope they don't do what I've heard that they're thinking about doing.
That doesn't sound great. Give me the footnotes.
Basically, the idea is to reform Cass and Enzo by turning Enzo heel during the match.
That's a disapproving silence there.
I would rather he just dropped the weapon down to try to get to Big Show, and Cass picked it up instead and used it. I would not want to see them, because that would be WWE admitting that they made a mistake.
True.
And,
yeah. I'm all behind them as singles. I definitely don't think they need to be reformed. They're perfectly fine.
Especially this soon.
True. The gimmick also doesn't necessarily lend itself towards it. A lot of catchphrases, a lot of repeated stuff, but I'm sure if that's the direction they go, these two will make it work. But I would like to see them floating around on their own for a little while, outside of each other's zones, completely ignoring each other, and moving forward with that. We got the other tag team division now, Cesaro and Sheamus defending against Ambrose and Rollins, who finally decided to fist bump.
Yeah, we're finally going to get... we finally got the 2/3 of the Shield back together. It was an epic moment when they finally put their differences aside for the greater good. I would have them win the titles on Sunday, be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have them run for the title, give them a run with the titles for a couple months. Then when it looks like the Shield are going to finally form as a whole unit, Dean Ambrose betrays them.
You just don't want it to be Rollins again.
Yes. And Ambrose could use a lot of a heel turn right now. He's gotten quite stale as a face.
Well, I'm hoping, the story arc makes sense for Ambrose and Rollins to walk around with the titles. It's not going to be too insane for them to do it. I'm just fingers crossing that the Dean Ambrose's champion booking thing doesn't extend to tag team titles. Fingers crossed on that. Also in the Raw divisions, Alexa Bliss will be defending her championship against Sasha Banks.
The match we probably should have had to begin with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
The only thing I don't like about Sasha winning on Raw, if you believe that Nia Jax is supposed to be the Andre the Giant of the women's division, you cannot have her tap out.
Does Sasha have an Impact finisher?
Usually use the double knees in the corners and things like that. And she'll sometimes use the setup move for her bank statement as part of to try to finish a person off.
Yeah, pretty much any sort of finish that doesn't involve you tapping out.
Yeah.
Tapping out means a surprisingly large amount nowadays. But we're going to have to ignore it and move on. Women's Championship match. Sasha Banks, is she going to walk out the champ, or is Alexa Bliss going to retain here?
I'm going to go with my gut over my head here and say that Alexa retains.
Well, I'm going to go with my heart, not my head, and say Alexa Bliss retains. SmackDown Women's Championship, Naomi Natalya. Is this just a catalyst to let Carmella?
No.
Okay.
From what I've heard, Naomi's supposed to remain champion for the rest of the year.
How long is that? 4 more months.
Of course, plans change, but the last plan I heard was for her to remain champion for much of the year.
Okay.
So I don't expect the title to change, and I don't expect to cash in for a while.
I'm fine with it. We said when both Corbin and Carmella won that they had the perfect gimmicks to be able to carry around the briefcase for a long time, so I'm not annoyed if Carmella's going to be carrying it around for a little bit longer. I definitely think Natalya is not the right person to capture the championship right now, so I'm fine with Naomi keeping it for a little while. I'm wondering how we're going to make Naomi for lack of a better word, interesting with this championship for another 4 months if she's going to stick around with it. But I'll wait and I'll see. Something I don't have to wait and see is Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon's feud getting a little bit deeper with an AJ Styles US Championship match in the middle there.
Yes, that will be very interesting. The build for this has been quite interesting. With both of them hitting Shane over the last couple of weeks, that gives Shane the ammunition he needs to call the match down the middle, which then will cause KO to go mental when he loses the match, because he will think that Shane screwed him.
Mm-hmm. We're just leading to Owens McMahon at this point.
Yeah.
And that won't happen if Owens wins the match. So, quite obvious AJ Styles US title retention here. WWE Championship, Jinder Mahal defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. Are we finally taking the title off Jinder?
I will go no on this pay-per-view.
You're not hindering Jinder just yet?
Not yet, because Jinder has an engagement on the 9th. I think that's when UFC 215 is.
Mm-hmm.
To walk UFC's first Indian-born fighter down to the octagon.
Yep.
I think they'll want him to be the WWE champion when doing that.
Fair enough.
That does not mean that Nakamura is not going to win the championship soon.
Mm-hmm. He'll win it on the 10th.
No. Nakamura will win it at the next pay-per-view.
Okay. Fatal 4-Way, Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman. Fingers crossed match of the night here. What are we going to get?
Your guess is as good as mine at this point. This will be an interesting match. I really, really am hoping that either Braun or Joe wins the match because Heyman screwed Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be an interesting dynamic to have either one of them, especially if I was going to book it, I would give the title to Braun via the Paul Heyman screw job.
Mm-hmm.
That gives Brock the out to go away for a while, go do the UFC thing, then come back for WrestleMania season to face Braun, who he then puts over.
Mm-hmm.
And then buggers off at the end of his contract.
Yeah. There's just so many variables with this match that you really don't know where it's going to go. You could see Roman picking up the title, you could see Joe or Braun, which also are my two preferred options. Braun is my number 1, Joe would be my number 2 here. Brock Lesnar could retain and stick around for a little bit longer as well, but I think adding that stipulation that both him and Heyman will walk out if they lose pretty much books them into losing. Otherwise it's not too much, like, why have a stipulation like that if they're going to win anyway? It just sort of, I guess, does beg the question if Kurt Angle's going to be involved here, if maybe he doesn't want to lose Brock Lesnar. But I think that's going a little too meta. I don't think we're going to get that far. Always a possibility.
Yeah, I just wonder. I've also heard that Brock's could win the match.
I wouldn't be surprised again. I think all 4 men have a chance.
A puncher's chance with no chin.
Yep. I think arguably Roman has the lower chance here. But
according to Vegas odds, that would be Braun, actually.
Really? I'm going to go to Vegas right now and drop a bet.
Yeah, Braun. Apparently, Lesnar, at least when they opened the match up, Lesnar was the favorite. Then you had Joe and Roman pretty much about the same. And then you had Braun way behind.
Interesting.
I haven't really checked anything about it since then. It's been a couple weeks.
Well,
but
we'll see.
But Braun was at the bottom of the totem pole when it came to Vegas odds.
I never know how spot on those things are. A lot of the time you got to wait for the money to come in, for people to lay their bets down and the odds to shift around before we know. But yeah, I'd still argue Roman has the least amount of odds, but he's Roman Reigns, so that automatically bumps his odds up 20%. But yeah, that's pretty much it. SummerSlam. Match you're most looking forward to?
The Fatal 4-Way.
It's going to be that one. Last match of the night, I'm assuming. Radio, well, it's been great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Wrestling Roundup Radio, Twitter page, twitter.com/Wrestling Radio. See you next week.